History often surprises us with unexpected twists. A nation that seems defeated can rise again, and powers that appear invincible can collapse overnight. In Surah Ar-Rūm, the Quran speaks directly about such a moment in history, the dramatic struggle between the Romans and the Persians. At a time when the Roman Empire suffered a crushing defeat, the Quran revealed a prophecy. The Romans would make a comeback within a few years, and that prophecy came true exactly as foretold. But beyond the historical event lies a deeper lesson about the nature of human power, the cycles of rise and fall, and the ultimate authority of God over history. Surah Ar-Rūm, the 30th chapter of the Quran, begins with a bold statement. The Romans have been defeated in the nearest land, but they, after their defeat, will be victorious within a few years. To God belongs the command before and after, and on that day the believers will rejoice. When these verses were revealed around the early 7th century, the situation looked hopeless for the Romans. The Byzantine Empire had been crushed by the Persians, losing territories in Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and even nearing the gates of Constantinople. To anyone observing, it seemed impossible that the Romans could recover. The pagan Arabs of Mecca mocked the Muslims when this verse was recited. They saw the Persians' victory as proof that their idol worship was stronger than the monotheism of the Christians and Muslims. They ridiculed the prophecy, confident that the Romans would never rise again. Yet the Quran declared otherwise. It promised that within years, an Arabic term meaning between 3 and 9 years, the Romans would achieve victory. History records that the prophecy was fulfilled in dramatic fashion. After years of setbacks, the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius reorganized his army, launched bold counteroffensives, and by the year 622 onwards began reclaiming lost territories. By 627, at the Battle of Nineveh, the Romans dealt a decisive blow to the Persians. Just as the Quran predicted, the defeated empire rose again within a few years. For the Muslims in Mecca, this was more than a distant geopolitical event. It was a sign that God's word is true, even when circumstances seem impossible. The believers rejoiced, not only because of the Roman victory, but because it symbolized the triumph of monotheism over polytheism. The story of the Roman comeback in Surah Ar-Rūm is not only about a fulfilled prophecy. It carries timeless lessons. The rise and fall of nations is under God's control. Empires may seem powerful, but their destinies unfold according to divine wisdom. No nation is guaranteed eternal dominance. History is cyclical. Victory and defeat, prosperity and decline, these cycles are part of human existence. Surah Ar-Rūm reminds us that nothing remains fixed except God's sovereignty. Prophecy builds faith. For early Muslims facing persecution, the fulfillment of this prophecy strengthened their conviction. It showed that even when odds seem stacked against truth, God's promise never fails. World events are signs for reflection. The surah urges people not just to watch history passively, but to read in it the fingerprints of divine wisdom. Signs in the natural world. Interestingly, Surah Ar-Rūm does not stop at discussing history. After narrating the prophecy, the chapter shifts to highlight other signs of God. Signs in the heavens and the earth in the alternation of night and day, in the diversity of human languages and colors in the creation of spouses, and in the sending of rain that revives dead land. This broadens the message. Just as the rise and fall of empires are signs, so too are the patterns of the universe around us. Everything points back to a creator whose wisdom governs existence. What does this mean for us today? We live in a world where powers still rise and fall. Nations dominate for a time, then decline. Economies flourish, then collapse. Even personal lives experience cycles of success and setback. The story of the Romans reminds us not to be deceived by appearances. Defeat is not always final, and victory is never guaranteed. What matters most is whether we recognize the hand of God behind the events of our lives. For believers, the prophecy in Surah Ar-Rūm is also a reminder of hope. Just as the Romans rose after seeming hopelessly broken, we too can recover from moments of weakness. With faith and perseverance, defeat can transform into renewal. When the Quran predicted the Romans' comeback is more than a headline. It is a reminder that God's word speaks across time. The Romans' rise was not just history. It was a lesson. It showed that God controls the destinies of nations, that apparent defeat can hide the seeds of victory, and that believers should never despair. Surah Ar-Rūm weaves history, prophecy, and reflection into a single message. Trust in God's plan. The world may shift, powers may change, but the one constant is the Creator who governs all. In every rise and fall, in every success and loss, He leaves signs for those willing to see.